Hey there, welcome to Board Game Hot Takes, the podcast where we give our immediate reactions to the hottest board games just minutes after playing them. My name's Tim.
And this is Chris.
This is Adam.
And this week, instead of giving our hot take review of a game we just finished playing, we're going to continue our countdown of our top games of all time for this year. And last year we did our numbers 31 through 40. This year we're going to be continuing the list with numbers 21 through 30, and we'll do the same over the next couple of weeks. Before we jump into that, though, we do have some poll results to discuss. Every week on social media, I ask a question on our Twitter page at BG_hot takes or on our Facebook group. And this week I asked the question, do you seek out game stores or game meetups when you travel to new cities? The options I gave, number one was yes, always. That got 16.7%. Yes, if I have free time, 62.8%. No was 20.5%. And believe it or not, other came in at 0%. I gave people a general option because they never agree with my options and nobody picked it. So apparently one of those three was the right answer. I could have just left those three alone. Crazy. You listeners are so fickle with my polls.
It's still nice that you gave him the full buffet, though.
I guess it was just giving the option was good enough, maybe. How did you guys answer this?
I put when I have the time, or whichever version that was, the maybe. And I specifically meant that with regard to game stores, because game meetups, like I don't have time for that when I'm traveling. Usually when I'm traveling either for work and I don't have time, or I'm traveling with my family and then we're there for fun. And so I imagine I'd get some sideways looks if I wandered off and went to a game meetup. But I am happy to go see whatever game store happens to be in town, especially if it's a good or interesting one. And just recently, I was in Ireland, and one of the things that we did while we were in Dublin, we were just out for the night, and I noticed that there was a game store kind of near the place where we were going to have our dinner. And so we wandered over and just checked it out. And it was cool because they were doing, I think it was a Magic the Gathering tournament that night. And so there was a bunch of people there, and it was just such a fun, interesting collection of Dubliners. There was, young kids, there was dudes in business suits that, had probably just come from work on their way home. And it was nice to see. We hung out for a few minutes. I window shopped for a game that unfortunately they didn't have, which is on my list tonight. And just had a fun time seeing what game culture was like in Dublin for a few minutes. So didn't play any games, but it was still fun to do. And I enjoy checking out those local bits of game culture.
I bet if you went to a place that was holding a Magic the Gathering tournament, you also found some butt cracks, because you almost always find butt cracks when you go to a Magic the Gathering tournament.
Not in Ireland.
Not in Ireland.
Who isn't looking for butt cracks anywhere they travel?
they're just going to show up, at least here in the United States. I almost always when I've been to a Magic. Well, I don't know. Like, it's been a long time. Maybe Magic the Gathering players have moved on and fashions have picked up.
And I've done a lot of cultural study on this, and butt cracks aren't really a big cultural thing in Ireland as much as they are here in the United States.
But Tim, a question for you. Did you show your butt crack at Magic the Gathering tournaments?
No.
Okay.
Never.
Just checking.
No.
Okay.
No, it wasn't like a fashion statement. I think it was an accidental thing generally. I don't think it was intentional. There was, sorry to go off on this tangent, but there was actually, like, when I was on Facebook years ago, there was a guy that used to just literally go to Magic the Gathering tournaments and take selfies with guys' butt cracks. Like, and he would find 3 or 4 at like every single tournament he went to. All right. Well, anyway, let's move on. So the reason I asked this question was because I was just traveling this last week. I spent a couple nights in Baltimore, a couple nights in Philadelphia, and a couple nights in Boston. And it was really just to explore the cities. It's mainly why we were there. So me and my wife and my daughter would spend a lot of time just walking around, checking out historical sites, just checking out neighborhoods, walking through and finding restaurants. But constantly on my mind the whole time was like, I hope we run across a game store. So a couple times I would drag them. I'd be like, hey, just a couple streets away, there's a game store. Let's walk over there. And so it's always on my mind. I like to do it when I've traveled for work. If I have a free night, I will usually try to find out if there's like a game store with a meetup going on and see if I can get to a game night, or at least stop in a game store and see what they got going on. So that's always on my mind because I love playing games. So it's a fun thing to think about. And, one of the people that responded on the Twitter poll had kind of said, like, why would I bother doing that? All game stores are pretty much the same. And I disagree. I tend to find that most game stores have a fairly limited collection of games. Like, even the biggest ones tend to have, the hottest stuff. They might have a few things that are unique, but every game store seems to have a slightly different curation, a different collection. And so it's fun to see what you find there. Maybe there's something on the sale shelf, or maybe just something you haven't seen for a while. I've even found games that are generally out of print online. Like, they're sold out online because they're hot, but the local game community hasn't purchased it. So it's fun to just see what's there and see if I can support that local store. And I don't know, I just like looking at games anyway. So
I agree, Tim. So I put the same thing. Yes, when I have time, I think was the option there. So I travel a lot for my job, and most places I go to, that's one of the first things I do. I'll Google and I'll be like, hey, is there a board game store here? I don't really say that. I type it in and say board game store. And if there's one within walking distance, that's what I do. I'll walk over to that thing. So I was in Portland one time and found this giant board game store. Chris, you probably know the one I'm talking about. You walk in and it's just from floor to the very high ceiling of amazing board games. It's the biggest board game store I have ever seen. There's a little bar in the back where you can have a beer and play a game, I think. So that was amazing to see. I get a little dose of the Portland game scene up there. I think I was in San Francisco. I Googled one and walked over to one. It was like, I don't know, 2.5 mile walk, but It was a City Games, I think, something like that. Cityscape Games. And that's where they had Quantum there, hugely out of print Quantum, just this little box, a little 4X dice game. If you haven't heard of it, it's selling for like $200 or something ridiculous for this tiny little game. I had it in my hand. It was selling for $50 there. And I was like, I should get this, but I didn't do it. I put it back. I've never seen it since. And so, yeah, every city that I go to, I see if there's a walkable board game store with mixed results. You know, when I get there, sometimes I have to walk through some sketchy parts of town, but it's always fun, always worth it. And it's just kind of neat to see where I end up and, you know, how the place looks, how they display the games. Is it mostly a mini shop? Is it all Magic the Gathering and cards and stuff? Does it have like what's the aroma? Like, do they care about how they present themselves? So just a lot of varied dishes you get with the different board game stores around the country.
Yeah, exactly. It is interesting how unique they are. I've walked into one in It was in Santa Monica. I was out there for work and I walked into one and it was mostly a mini store and they had a pretty good collection of games, but it clearly wasn't known for that because all the games were dusty.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and they were fairly older games and the people in the store didn't even want to talk to me. They just wanted to paint their, like literally the people working there were just painting minis.
Wow.
So clearly they were just hobbyists that just like to paint minis. So they put this store together, threw some board games up and had no interest in actually selling mini games. But yeah, they're all different, right? Like some of them are very clean and very, you know, game focused. This one I went into in Baltimore in Philadelphia was like mostly a comic store with a small game collection in the back, but still decent games in there and fun to walk through some comic books and little figurines and, you know, comic statues and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so some of the people that responded to this poll also gave us some comments. So I'll read a couple of them here. So Brian Symington said, one great experience I had was on a trip to Europe. We spent time in London, Amsterdam, and Cologne. I made it a point to find and visit great game stores in each city. It was a lot of fun and a great way to explore the cities away from the tourist sites. And that's, one kind of fun thing to do too, is because you're going out and looking for something that's not necessarily like a landmark or a normal tourist site, you get to just see the city the way that, you know, residents see at least parts of it as well. Caleb said, if I don't have time, I make time. Full workday scheduled. Best believe I'm forsaking sleep. Get your priorities straight, Caleb.
I love it.
Matt Rodella said, well, I usually don't plan it into my trips. My head is always on a swivel while walking around for board game stores, cafes, or areas. Board Game Chatterbox said, there are 3 things I always look for when visiting a new city. Board game cafe, somewhere special to eat, and somewhere with a great view. In that order, I hope. That's the right way to go.
Or if you can find one that encompasses all 3, there you go.
I know.
And then Rick said, we accidentally discovered a board game cafe while traveling a few years ago. Now we schedule our overnight stops based on these places. We've hit 5 different spots in 4 states. Should probably start a YouTube channel, I guess. I might watch that channel.
That would be super interesting, actually. Yeah.
That's dedication.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone for responding. And again, if you are interested in being involved with these polls, follow us on social media and we'd love to get your results and hear some of your answers. All right, well, let's jump into this week's topic. So we're going to be continuing our top 40 games of all time. In this case, it's going to be numbers 21 through 30, starting with number 30.
All right. Well, interestingly, my number 21 through 30 list was very different from my 31 through 40 list. 31 through 40 was a lot of games generally that were new to me. There was a couple old favorites in there, but there were a bunch that we had reviewed recently. And so it felt like a lot of that was sort of some like new love, you know, checking out games. And so they weren't around long enough. They hadn't proven themselves enough to be at the top of the list. But they were on my mind, and that was kind of fun to see. I felt like 21 through 30 was what we might call, in real estate terms, the transition zone. There were a few hot new games in there that were kind of interesting, but there was also a handful of games that were higher up on the list, and they were starting to move down a little bit. So maybe the luster had started to wear off of them, some of the shine. And so they were games that were descending a little bit. Anyway, number 30 is actually the game that I mentioned before when I was shopping in Dublin. I was actually hoping to find this game. And it's Star Wars, the deck building game, designed by Caleb Grace and published by Fantasy Flight Games. And shortly before my trip, Adam and I had recorded our episode where we played this game, and I was absolutely blown away by it. I think I've made this comment a couple times on the show, but I feel like this is a game that nearly perfected the deck building game. I obviously have a lot of emotional ties to some other deck building games too, but they did so many things so right in this game that it just absolutely blew me away. And I was looking for that game in Dublin when that Magic the Gathering tournament was going on. Unfortunately, they didn't have it, but I would have picked up a copy if they had it. And I actually still need to pick up a copy because I haven't done it yet. But this game is just so much fun. It's a deck building game in the traditional sense, but it also does a few things that are very special, like having it so you can only recruit cards that are in your faction. And if they're from another faction, then you can actually kill that card, which is thematically so perfect, I think, and adds in some extra little fun, like the ability to influence the Force and have the Force influence the turns that you're making and making them stronger. So I feel like the theme in this one just got ramped up to like 100. And because this is a deck building game, I'm sort of predisposed to like it. So I have a feeling that, if this game stays as hot in my mind as I think it will, this is going to be climbing up the list, and we'll be hearing more about it in the future.
Chris, if only you tried a little bit harder at SedonaCon, you could have left with a copy of it. Instead, Adam's got that copy.
What a great copy it is. And what a fun game, Chris. It didn't make my list into the algorithm of Pub Meeple. Otherwise, I feel like it probably would have showed up somewhere in there. But yeah, fun pick, and one I had forgotten about, sort of, until you mentioned it, even though it was the first place prize from SedonaCon and it's sitting downstairs and beaming at me.
You took it home and you don't even appreciate it. Ugh, shame on you, Adam.
It's so sad.
I forgot to mention that we are going to try to, at the end of every game, talk about our favorite thing about these games as well. So Chris, what's your favorite thing about the Star Wars deck building game?
Thanks for the reminder. My favorite thing about it is the way that they managed to perfect the integration of theme. I've complained before about how a lot of these deck building games, it's like, oh, you can hero realms, you can have an orc, and you can have a knight fighting on the same side. Well, that just doesn't make any sense. The same thing with all these different factions and star realms, and basically every deck building game you've ever played. There's like these weird combos, but in this game, you truly stay orthodox to if you work for the rebellion, that you can't recruit somebody from the dark side. You can't recruit somebody from the Empire and vice versa, because that's just not how it works. So I think that is one of the most delightful things about this game, hands down.
What's still amazing to me is that this is number 30 on Chris's list, and yet Star Realms isn't even on his list, which clearly means that Star Wars, the deck building game, is a better deck builder for Chris.
I think I addressed that already.
All right. Well, my number 30 is a big old game called Frosthaven. This is designed by Isaac Childress and published by Cephalofair Games. This was delivered to me via Kickstarter a few months back, and I've had a decent amount of play out of it, and I'm really loving Frosthaven. It's more than I expected. I'm playing a 2-player campaign with a friend who's really enthusiastic about it, so every time we get a chance, we'll spend a whole Sunday playing through 5 or 6 scenarios, or we'll do 1 or 2 scenarios on a Thursday night. And it's just so fun to explore. The game is so big. There's so much content and new things, new mechanisms, new content types that we're discovering each time we play it. It's just fun to dig in and explore it. And the gameplay is pretty fun too. It's a lot of tactical combat, kind of card driven, cooperative, but the cooperative is interesting because you don't really plan together. You kind of have to reveal cards at the same time and decide and find out when everybody's revealed what everybody's doing and who's going first. And so there's a little bit of surprise with it. It doesn't feel like anyone can quarterback the game. But it's really the content, I think, that really gets me excited about this. It's so fun to, hey, what's this new scenario? Let's read about the scenario. What treasures are going to be in it? What kind of new mechanisms are going to happen? What's the puzzle of the scenario? And then when I complete the scenario, what rewards did we just get? What happens when we go back to the city? Do we have enough resources to build a new building that gives us some new ability we can activate in the city phase? So lots of fun to explore here. I don't know that Frosthaven would ever get any higher for me. It is a really cool, epic game, but it also is very hard to get to the table. And it's also a lot of rulebook checking and a lot of the things that I think games could and should do better, which is be more approachable, be more streamlined, and still be fun. And so Frosthaven, just by trying to be so much of a game, it takes it away from that approachability quite a bit, but still a great game. I can see why the Gloomhaven series is so loved, and I can't wait to continue going through this campaign. And I think because of the fact that I've got an enthusiastic partner going through it with me, I think we're going to finish this campaign, and we'll probably finish it in a year, and that's great. It's fun that every couple of weeks we're going to get together and play some scenarios of this and explore it more. So yeah, Frosthaven is my number 30.
Frosthaven is a game I backed on Kickstarter, just like however many other millions of people. And it's sitting down there staring at me. And you mentioned it, Tim, having a friend, a partner, somebody that's also enthusiastic about going through the campaign with you. It would probably help. And I probably would dig this thing out and actually open it and unpack it and take a look at it if I had that kind of situation. But I don't. So if somebody wants to pay the ungodly amount of shipping costs and buy this thing from me, give me a holler and it'll be yours, brand new.
Hey, Tim, I'm actually a little surprised that this is the second cooperative game we've seen on your list already?
I know. What's wrong with me?
I know. What is wrong with you?
It's the third, but one of them I've only played solo. And I think it's the last, but I'm not going to look further on my list quite yet and decide that. And we'll find out if we get surprised by something else.
Hey, man, the heart wants what the heart wants.
My number 30 is going to be shrouded with the background noise of kids having fun, so apologies for that. But my number 30 is Soul, Last Days of a Star. This is Ryan and Sean Spangler's invention, and that's with their own publishing company, Elephant Laboratories. This was number 24 on my list last year. This game has, there's a star that's dying, or these different civilizations that have been around the star depending on it for life and having their planet survive. Now they're trying to harness energy from the sun and get enough momentum to escape the star before it goes supernova so they can launch to the next star and hopefully colonize a new planet. What a beautiful game. What a fun game. A little bit of spatial reasoning, organizing your little sun divers in the right shape to build these different buildings, to harness the energy of the sun in different ways and spread that out. You can build these other buildings that make more sun divers. You can build these buildings that make energy cubes. You can build these buildings that convert energy cubes into points. There's player interaction here. If somebody else uses your stuff, you get a little bonus from that. If somebody else uses your stuff and you can't take the bonus, then the player uses your stuff and take the bonus. So that's kind of neat. You're looking to see if you can sneak some bonuses off other people's stuff. You have this drawdown, these solar flares. Once there's like 13 solar flares in the game, then the star explodes and the game's over. So you don't necessarily know exactly when the game is going to end. So there's this tension and these card drawing, and then there's different player powers with the different cards every time that you play this game. So a lot to like here. At least for me, I enjoy this one very much. And the art might be my favorite part about this game. It's just dramatic. You have this beautiful star against a stark black backdrop of space and these neat little buildings. It's very minimalistic, but also beautiful. The parts that aren't minimalistic are beautiful. And that's why I very much enjoy Soul, Last Days of a Star.
It's got a lovely and clean production in the same way that Dune Imperium does, I think.
Yeah. So I was thinking after last week's episode that I didn't get near critical enough on any of your guys' picks last week. I generally liked most of them. Uh-oh. So this is the first one I'll say I really don't enjoy this game. And I want to. I mean, it's a really interesting design, but it just doesn't work for me at all. So glad you're still liking it, though.
I'm kind of with Tim on that one, but I will say that I did appreciate the spatial puzzle in it, which I think is interesting. And now that's two recent mentions of spatial puzzles from Adam, the other one being Abduction, which I think is actually kind of cool. It was a little bit different, and I thought that was a pretty unique part of the game.
Yeah.
So my number 29 is a game that dropped a little bit since last year. And in last year's list, it was number 14, and that is Clank in Space, designed by Paul Denon and published by Direwolf Games. This game dropped not because I don't like it as much necessarily. I do still like it quite a bit, and it's a really fun game. All the things that I've always enjoyed about it, I still enjoy. But this is one that I'm not sure. Maybe it has to do with its siblings have caused it a little bit of trouble in my book, and maybe it's just having played it enough now that some of that luster has worn off. But I find that when I think about Clank in Space, I think about Acquisitions Incorporated, and I'd rather be playing Acquisitions Incorporated because it is so much fun as a legacy game. Or I think about Catacombs and how much I really just didn't like Catacombs and how that kind of brought the whole series down a little bit in my estimation. And I'm kind of sad about that. But I mean, still, all the things, the great sense of humor, the fun gameplay, the deck building, which I think was done much better in this game than was done in Catacombs, a little more similar to Acquisitions Incorporated in the base game. But so much to like here. But of all the things that I love about this game, I will stand fast with my favorite part being the sense of humor. I still get a little chuckle every time I whip out those cards and you see all those funny sci-fi tropes that you're like, wait, what's that? Oh yeah, that's right. That's such and such from so-and-so. And I think that is great fun. It would be neat just to sit there and look at the cards, just to pick out all the little tropes and all the little things that you recognize from your favorite episodes of, I don't know, Star Trek, Star Wars, or name your sci-fi movie. But a fun game, just not quite as fun for me as it used to be.
So the little foreshadowing that there might be a different Clank on your list in the future, Chris?
Actually, no.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, no, I thought for sure you were going to say Clank Catacombs took its place higher up your list, and that's why this dropped down. But clearly that's not the case.
No, and I think that Adam was suggesting that probably Acquisitions Incorporated.
Right.
So I feel like I need to address that then, because Acquisitions Incorporated is not on my list. And part of that is because even though I'd rather be playing that, or I think about that more when I think about the Clank series, I have already done the legacy game. Tim and I played a campaign and had a great time with it, but I feel less urgent about that because it's already done. So it creates this weird headspace for me with this game. So I think of the bunch, probably the one that is most solid for me still, even though it's dropped a little bit, is Clank in Space.
Yeah, and I agree. And I mostly left legacy games off my list as well, other than Frosthaven is on there. It has some legacy elements, but it's partly because I'm right in the middle of it. Also, probably partly why it will never rise higher, because when I beat the campaign, it's probably going to start to drift from mine. I think it is cool that Clank in Space is your top kind of standalone Clank game, because it does feel very unique to the rest of the series. It's got the factions that trigger a little bit different, which you like in deck building. It's got the the modular board, but also the extra goals you have to hit in the middle of it. And I just feel like you didn't give Clank Catacombs a good shake. I don't know, maybe I was a bad teacher that night. I can't understand why it didn't hit for you, Chris, the way it should have, because it's a great update in the Clank universe. But anyway, that's cool.
It's not you, Tim. It's Clank.
All right. Well, my 29 is a little game called Magic the Gathering. I'm starting with all the heavy hitters tonight. Magic the Gathering is a game that's been a huge part of my life for probably 25 years at this point. I started playing it shortly after I got out of high school in like 1995. And I've played it quite a bit since, not so much in recent years. Is this a board game? I don't know. A lot of games that we talk about are really just cards. So I think we can consider it a board game, but it's a collectible card game. So it does feel like a different animal. And that's partly why it's, lower on my list than it has been in the past, or than it deserves to be, because honestly, this is one of the best games of all time. But it's not very approachable. I don't really plan to ever introduce you guys to it, because I don't think you'll get the full experience if you're playing it one or two times. Happy to do that, right? But I don't think you're going to get the full experience of what Magic the Gathering is if you play one or two times. There's so many ways to play this game. What I discovered, a lot of people think of a collectible card game and say, hey, I got to chase all the rare cards. I got to spend a lot of money to build the special deck. Forget all that. There's this format called Limited where you literally just open packs and build a deck out of the packs that you opened. Even better, draft the cards out of them. That's the best way to play a game of Magic the Gathering. And it doesn't require purchasing a lot of special cards. You can build a cube where it's just like a number of cards that friends just redraft over and over again. There's more approachable ways to get into this game, but it's a big world to explore. It's hard to get there. And so it's just not going to get played a lot, probably for me. Or for most of my friends. So it's sinking. It may eventually fall off this list, but still love this game. My favorite part about Magic the Gathering, there's a huge world to explore there. Like every new set that comes out introduces new mechanisms, introduces new powers that you have to kind of assess. What's the value? How much is this worth? How important is it for me? And when you throw that into a drafting format, where you're basically everyone's opening a pack, picking a card and passing the rest, it makes such a fun first part of that game, which is I get to build my deck as we're sitting here looking at these cards and assessing them. And then let's see what I came out with. And now I actually get to play it. I get to duel against somebody and figure out how well I did with that. So I think just the discovery and add drafting into that, and Magic the Gathering is going to always be a game I'd love to go back to. They just released a new Lord of the Rings based set, which is kind of unique because in the past Magic the Gathering had its own unique world, but Wizards of the Coast has started to add some IPs in there, and they just did a whole Lord of the Rings set, which is really cool. But I got to tell you guys about one of the gimmicks they put in there. This is a collectible card game where you open packs and you can sometimes get rare cards or ultra rare cards like foil cards or whatever, right? They put one only one version of the One Ring of a special, like printed in like Elvic runes.
Wow.
Elvish runes or whatever, but there's only one. And that's the only one printed out of the several million packs that will be distributed and sold. And there's already people pre-stating that they'll pay like $200,000 if somebody wants to sell them this card. So
it's crazy.
So pretty interesting gimmick based around the Lord of the Rings IP there. But anyway, Magic the Gathering, like it's an addictive sales model. I don't like that about it either, but it is still a really cool game that Richard Garfield created way back in like 1993.
So come for the exploration of Magic, stay for the butt cracks, and leave because of the butt cracks?
There's several negatives with the
game. All right, check please. Let's move on.
All right, next up on my list is also another card game. This is Ghosts of Christmas. This is a little trick-taking game by Taiki Shinzawa, and it's BoardGameTables.com makes this one. This is a fantastic little trick-taking game. The twist is after you play the cards, so there's a past, present, and a future, right? Just like old, I want to say Ichabod Crane. I don't think that's right. Ebenezer Scrooge in Christmas Tale. So he's getting visited by these ghosts, or I don't know what the story is here exactly. But you play these cards just as you would play them. But then when they resolve, you do the past first. And then whoever won that suit is now Trump for the next era. So whoever, won the past, now that, say it was green, is now the Trump suit for the present. And then whichever one wins the present is now the Trump suit for the future. The twist on the way that the cards resolve, I think, is just an interesting puzzle, and it's hard to wrap your brain around. So that is fantastic as far as trick taking goes. 3 tricks instead of 1 at a time. It's kind of 3 at a time. So you have to kind of time that out. And I think that's pretty spectacular. I also love the components here. The deluxe version, like $10 more. What do you get? You get some 3D wreaths, and you're using those. You put them on your doors as the game goes on to mark how many points you've gotten, how many tricks you've taken. So the components here are fun. Delightful little card game. There's these little spinners to track the suit. That's the Trump for the current era. A tricky little trick-taking game. Ghosts of Christmas. Chris has disconnected. He's going to just poop all over this one. It's a trick-taking game. But Tim, let me hear your thoughts about this one. I think you actually enjoy it.
Well, before I jump into my thoughts on it, first we have to talk about the fact that it's not Ichabod Crane and A Christmas Tale. It's Charles Dickens and A Christmas Carol is the name of the story that it's based on. But you were close, Adam. You're very close.
I was just throwing out my poor literary knowledge. I was exposed once again.
This was a really, really fun game. It was so hard to wrap my head around in the first hand, but wow, once you kind of got the trick of it, right? What you had to do, it was really, really fun to play around with, trying to figure out those 3 different tricks going on and how you could get the other people and how you're going to try not to get stuck and things like that. I really like this game. I'd love to play it again. I meant to pick it up last year as kind of a Christmas game, but it's hard to get new games taught in my group. So I didn't even know if it'd ever get played, but I think this is a fantastic game. Really, really neat production for a little trick-taking game as well.
Ghosts of Christmas was number 27 on my list last year. So a little bit of downward movement, but still a game that I love very much.
All right. Well, my number 28 this year is another one that was on the list last year and moved down a little bit, but this time a very, very little bit, just a couple places. This game was number 25 last year, moved down 3 to number 28. And that game is Rap Godz, designed by Omari Akil and published by Colorway Game Labs. So I think the reason that this one changed a little bit is not because my feelings about the game have changed, but just I played more games and the way things shook out in the Pub Meeple rankings, that's what happened. In fact, one of the things that I've said every time I brought this game up before is that I really just want to play this game again. I want to try it again. I should buy it at some point. Well, I actually tried to buy it. So I'm trying to get a copy of this game. I ordered it from the Colorway Game Labs website, which was a little bit vague as to whether it was prior to the reprint or whether it was actually available. I thought it was available. Had not received it yet. I actually reached out to them and haven't heard back yet. So I'm hoping to have a copy of this game relatively soon. And Colorway Game Labs, if you're out there listening, I'm ready. I'm ready to play this game again. This game, like Clank in Space, had a really fun sense of humor. And I think that that's one of the things that sets this game apart. But since I just talked about the sense of humor being my favorite part of Clank in Space, I'm going to pull something a little bit different for Rap Godz. This game, there are 2 things I actually liked best about it. which I guess means technically
you're cheating.
They can't be the best. I don't know. Anyway, two things I really, really liked equally about this game. One was the cool art. I really enjoyed the art. It was a lot of fun. And the other one was the fact that you moved up this track that allowed you purchasing power with resources, but you didn't spend it. Once you'd reached a certain point, you had access to that much purchasing power. And so you didn't spend it when you used it. You just gained more purchasing power as you moved. And I thought that actually was a lot of fun. I liked that. It felt like it took a little bit of the pressure off, loosened up the economy a little bit. And for me, I'm not one that loves an incredibly tight economy. So I thought that actually was a really fun aspect of the game. It felt a little bit freeing. So that's my one, count them, two favorite things about Rap Godz.
Yeah, I still remember having a really good time with Rap Godz, but I only had the one play with it. So if you ever get this, Chris, love to play it again. Hopefully you can at some point. It's interesting because I think they were going to reprint it with the Hoop Gods Kickstarter, but I have not heard anything about that. Not that I didn't back it, but I wonder how that's going because I haven't seen anything on social media about it. Well, it was quite popular on social media when it was first on Kickstarter a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Hoop Gods looked like a lot of fun too, but that's a 2-player game. So that's why I've never brought it to the table for us.
I want to add on that Rap Godz had that, I like the turntable that you're playing on. I think that's a pretty neat aspect. And I loved all the street art, beautiful art here with this one too. That adds to the theme.
All right, well, my number 28 is Rajas of the Ganges. This is by Inca and Marcus Brand, and I've always liked this game. I think it was in my top 20 last year, probably sank only because I don't think I've gotten it played since then. I don't own a copy, but I was just thinking about that the other day after making this list, and I added it to my Amazon wish list, so hopefully, it's something that is a gift in the next few months or something. But really like Rajas of the Ganges. It's a dice worker placement game with an interesting twist that your dice are basically resources. And so, when you go out and place workers, a lot of time you're just collecting dice and the dice let you do different things. And it's set in a really cool setting. It's kind of ancient India. So you've got some unique artwork, some unique architecture on there. Yeah, it's just a fun worker placement game that every time I played it has been a joy for me. So I need to buy it. I need to play it some more. And I think I'm going to really like this game every time I play it. My favorite part about Rajas of the Ganges is there's bonuses everywhere. You take the boat action, you get a bonus. You build a building and a street and it connects to a side of your thing, you get a bonus. You sell enough goods, you get a bonus. So I love bonuses. This is just a cool production. I also like the score tracks, and there's other games that do it, Arc Nova more recently, but you've got this income that is something you can spend, but the higher you get that up, if you can meet it to your glory or your honor track or whatever that goes on the other side of the board, once those two tracks connect, that's when the game ends and you want to be overlapped on those the most. So that was clever, but yeah, I think it's the bonuses, the color, the production, everything about this game just reminds me of fun. And so I think it could go higher again once I own a copy and could get it played a little bit more.
Great pick, Tim.
Said with a smirk on your face.
Up next for me is Star Realms. This is Chris's number 1 through 40, I think he said the other day, and it conquers all other games in the history of games, designed by Rob Doherty and Darwin Castle. Yeah, we talked about this a few times already today. My favorite thing about it is the clean information presentation. You've got the 4 different factions, the 4 different colors are easy to look at, 4 different symbols as well for the factions. And then you've got the different symbol and color combinations for health, purchase power, and damage done, damage that you can inflict upon an opponent. It's super easy to parse. So once you've played this game 3-4 times, you know exactly what's going on with the iconography. Star Wars, the deck building game, should have taken a few lessons from Star Realms, the deck building game, and done the same with their iconography and information presentation. I wish they had done that. That would have just made the deck building game for Star Wars that much better. But yeah, that's my number 28. Chris, you've had a couple duels with Darwin Castle, right? The designer on this one on the app itself. How'd those go?
I think I lost every time, which I guess shouldn't be any big surprise, right? I've played a couple of the big wigs, the people who have like the highest rankings in the world, and there's been a couple times that I've won. Not usually. In Darwin Castle, like I said, I've played a couple times. So one of these days, man, I'll have my victory.
Chris, what's your win rate against me? Which one of us is leading?
You are leading by something like 100%.
He's not going to say the number. We played so many games.
Yeah, I think it's something like you're leading by like 50 games out of a few thousand. So I'm catching up, though. I'm on a roll right now.
You are. I cannot seem to win against Chris lately on this game.
We'll check in on this again next year for this list. My number 27 game is another one that sadly fell a few places from last year. This year, 27, last year, number 19. And this one is Gotham City Chronicles, designed by Frederick Henry and published by Monolith Games. There's a real simple reason why this game has dropped for me, and that is I just can't get it played. It's a huge, complex game with a gigantor rule set and a really, really bad instruction manual to go with it that I just can't get. I can't see myself busting this out with pretty much anybody other than you guys. And I see you once or twice a year, and this is not the game that we're going to, spend half a day playing because of all the challenge associated with it. So I just couldn't see this one getting higher up on my list, and it did drop down a little bit. Now, having said that, they're coming out with Season 3. It comes with a solo mode that I'm thinking is going to make it much, much easier to get this game to the table. I mean, certainly it will, because I can always play with myself, whereas I can't get someone else to play with me, and that's really the big challenge of this game. So I'm hoping that what's going to happen is that I'm going to get that Season 3, I'm going to get into this game in the solo mode, and I'm going to, number one, learn to love it again the way that I did before. And number two, get conversant enough in the game that I don't feel intimidated bringing this out if I have somebody that I'm playing a game with. I mean, if I could actually explain this to someone pretty efficiently, I might be a lot more likely to get it played. But as it stands right now, it's just too hard to do. My favorite thing about Batman Gotham City Chronicles is the incredible attention to detail that the designers put into the Batman universe, the way that they incorporated that into the mechanisms. And this is a point that I've talked about in previous episodes when we've talked about this game. And I always use, I think I use the same example every time, but that down to the minor details about characters. For example, there are some characters that won't use a gun if you find it. Batman won't use a gun. Robin won't use a gun. These little personality and character quirks are incorporated into the game in ways that actually affect the gameplay. And if you're a geek of comic books like I am, and you know the characters and you love the characters, then you're going to love that too. It's a lot of fun. It's a little bit of extra rules overhead, but I think in this case, it's pretty well worth it.
Chris, you're a big DC fan, right? How are you excited about the new Flash movie? What's your thought on Michael Keaton coming back as Batman?
I'm excited about Michael Keaton coming back as Batman because I can actually remember being in high school and watching the original, 1989 Batman. I had the T-shirt. And for those who are old enough to remember this, like these stylings back in the day, when you go to the mall and there'd be some dude with a cart where they had these like airbrushed T-shirts, this like crazy airbrush. It was almost like the Velvet Elvis or the Crying Clown, like that kind of a look on it. And my dream shirt was this 1989 Batman Batmobile painted in a tremendous amount of detail on this black T-shirt. I never got it. I got the one with just the bat signal, but I never got the one with the airbrushed painting on it. It's so freaking tragic.
Nice. I had the classic bat symbol T-shirt in 1989 as well. I was also a huge fan, although I think I was in junior high at the time when the movie came out. But huge part of my cultural upbringing, for sure. Still a huge fan of the Prince soundtrack. For that movie as well. Less excited about the Flash movie, but I'm sure I'll watch it on a plane at some point. I did want to mention, though, Chris, I think it's interesting. You were talking about the solo mode on that, and it just occurred to me that when we did our first top solo games of all time episode, you had never even played a solo game. So you kind of just talked about games that were interesting to you. And it does seem to be a bigger part of your gaming world. So maybe we'll have to revisit that at some point. All right. So my number 27 is a game that you guys don't even want to hear me talk about. And this is Lorenzo Il Magnifico. This is designed by Flaminia Brigini, Virginio Gigli, and Simone Luciani. This is a wonderful, wonderful Euro game. Great engine building, tight worker placement, just fantastic game. Don't listen to these guys. If you listen to our review on it, they're so wrong on it. It's fantastic. So yeah, Lorenzo Il Magnifico. I wish I could get it played more. It is on Yucata, so I've played a few times on there, but it's unfortunately not on Board Game Arena, so I'm not getting it played there. And my copy is sitting collecting dust on the shelf at home because nobody wants to play this ugly old Euro with me. But it's brilliant. It's beautiful and fun. And I said beautiful. Sorry, it's not beautiful, but it's very fun. And yeah, my favorite thing about Lorenzo Il Magnifico, the worker placement, there's a couple worker placement spaces that allow you to activate your production. There's 2 different colors of production on here. And it's such a tight decision because you have to choose whether you're going to try to do that in that round or do something else. And if you do it as a second person, you lose so much of the effect of it. Love tight worker placement like this. So Lorenzo Il Magnifico is my number 27.
So Tim, the fact that nobody wants to play is with you, who's writing that one? You or everybody else? I don't know.
Well, my number 27 is Robotech Reconstruction.
Ooh, nice.
This is a game that we had the chance to play with the designer of the game, one of the 2 people known as Dr. Wicks. I forget which specific person, but he did a wonderful job of telling us the rules, explaining it to us, and he kind of managed, he was there to watch the 4 of us play this game and helped us out with any kind of questions or anything. So great experience playing this one. We played it twice. We played it back to back because it plays rather quickly. This is what's known as a coin game, counterinsurgency. Whether that means anything to you or not doesn't matter. This is a fantastic game. There's high player interaction, some interesting area control going on here. There's these different parts of the region. I went back and looked at the map because there's tons going on here. There's this green side on the left and then a red side on the right, and there's kind of this sliding scale, this little spectrum of citizens or people filling in, and that represents who has more control or more clout in this part of the map. It's a crazy map. There's all these different colors on. There's different regions of this world from Robotech Reconstruction from Robotech anyway, that Chris could probably tell you all about. There's the singer. I don't even remember the singer's name. Chris, what's the name of the singer?
Min May.
There you go. And there's a giant robot in Macross City doing this thing and that. Anyway, I don't know jack all about the theme, but the game was so great. First part of this, you're trying to make a deal with your frenemy. There's kind of another faction that's sort of your buddy, but nobody's really buddies in this game. So are you going to trade a card with them? Are you going to trade a card with anybody else to sort of help each other out? There's a little bit of incentive to do that. So there's a little bit of discussion before you even start playing that round. I enjoyed that a lot, but it's not like a super involved diplomacy sort of thing. It's just a quick, let's trade a card or not. And then you play, you do your thing. There's all these different situations. Everybody has the same actions, but they each benefit every faction in a little bit of a different way. A lot going on here in a very approachable, friendly package. One of the downfalls is you probably need 4 people to play this game. So that's a little tough to get to unless you have some enthusiastic gaming friends that are ready to play Robotech Reconstruction. The favorite part of this one is, I don't know, I love how they tracked the post-round sort of cleanup phase. I think it was just done perfectly. This extra board that walks you through the different section to go through, and it displays everybody's points and what they need for their victory condition. It's super easy to parse, laid out, and just keeps everybody involved and sort of on track with what is going on in the game. Robotech Reconstruction, that's a fun one.
Such a fun game, Adam. It's definitely a little under the radar, but it's one that deserves to be on the radar. So I heartily second that one. And I'm going to heartily 26th my next choice on the list here, which is Endless Winter Paleoamericans, which is designed by Stan Kordonsky and published by Fantasia Games. This is another game that's new this year, and it's one that we reviewed not too long ago and actually just played for the second time at SedonaCon. Super fun game. Worker placement, fairly complex, but really enjoyable. And a couple things I really liked about this game. One is just the fun artwork and the engaging gameplay. And of course, this is also where we met Chief Thunderpaw. But my favorite thing about this game, other than Thunderpaw, is that it's got this really diverse set of ways that you can play the game to get points. And actually, one of the things that's special about it is you don't have to diversify if you don't want to. You can really just kind of go with one method versus the other, one path versus the other, and make a game in a completely different way than the other players do. I think the first time we played, I really focused on animals, got a ton of points for it. I was not in the mood for doing area control that night, so I stayed off the area control board. I don't think I did a single thing out there. Another game that we played, I tried to focus on, I can't remember if it's called the megaliths or it's where you put the little tiles on, piling up little piles of tiles to make little cairns. And that one, unfortunately, I didn't do a very good job of putting a game together, but that's another way that you can do it, or you can focus on that area control. So my favorite thing about this game is the fact that you really can choose your own adventure. And I chose my 2 adventures. One of them I failed miserably. One of them I succeeded tremendously. So I thought that kind of a choice is a really fun one.
Another game, Chris, you could have walked away with at SedonaCon if you just played a little bit better.
Tim, I'm rubbing that in tonight. Ouch.
That's a big talk for second place, man.
I forgot to mention when we did our SedonaCon coverage that the reason we had that game and the Star Wars deck building game as prizes was because our listener, Board Game Chatterbox, sent us a nice gift card on Christmas, and we purchased those. So thanks again, Leanne, for giving those prizes. But unfortunately, Chris didn't get the benefits of either of them. So, all right, my number 26 game is Pan Am. This game was designed by the design group Prospero Hall and published by Funko Games. This is a game that you can find for about $20 to $25 at big retail stores or Amazon. And it's a worker placement game with a little bit of an auction in it that is really fun. The theme is really well applied here. And somehow the game is just really fun. It moves brisk. It's quick. It's easy to teach. It's easy to play. And it had kind of been off my radar because I hadn't played it for a couple of years. When we played it at SedonaCon recently, it was one of my favorite experiences of the con. So I purchased a copy, and I can't wait. I'm hopefully getting to teach it with some friends this coming week. I'll probably bring it to Mexico when we go down there. So I think we'll get some easy plays of this very soon. And Pan Am, I really love it. I think my favorite part about it is just that mix of worker placement and bidding, where basically you place a thing at whatever you want to price that worker placement space. And if someone else wants to pay more for it, they can outbid you on it, and you immediately get your worker back, so you don't lose it, and you don't have to pay for it. And that's just a fun thing. Like, how much do I want to pay for this, and how much do I want to? I know somebody else really wants this. Can I get them to pay a lot more and blow their money on it? So really like that part of Pan Am.
What a great pick, Tim. That's a fun mechanism. That auction worker placement system is just fantastic. You and I need to get Chris to share his playlist for this. So anytime we have people play it, we can get this playlist going throughout the eras of Pan Am and try to get a little piece of the Chris thematic masterpiece that he does with Pan Am here.
Yeah, I think that's a key. And I was thinking about trying to make my own, but I think what Chris put together was fantastic. So agreed, Chris, if you can figure out a way to share that playlist with me, I would love that.
I'd be happy to. And I'm always there to make the drinks.
Next up on my list, number 26 is Shards of Infinity. This is another deck building game designed by Gary Arant and Justin Gary, published by Stoneblade Entertainment. This game is absolutely beautiful. If you haven't seen it, favorite part about this one is there's no make your opponent discard cards. Chris's favorite move from Star Realms. It makes me discard all my cards all the time. I have one card left. I can buy like a scout or an explorer or whatever they're all after. He makes me discard everything. I can't, and then it just renders you helpless. Basically like a skip a turn. That's my least favorite thing about Star Realms. Here they get rid of that in Shards of Infinity. So I think that's my favorite thing about the game. Also, some other very clever mechanisms. There's cards you can buy straight from the market and put them directly into play for a one-time use. I think that's pretty spectacular. There's some, just the different things that they do. There's some cards that refer back to cards in your discard pile. And, if you have these 3 or 4, whatever type of cards in your discard pile, that adds to the power of that card. There's also, you're building up these Shards of Infinity, where if you have 5, then that unlocks a threshold power. And if you have 10, and if you get like 15 or 20, then you automatically win. You have this as long as you get that card back that says, boom, you have infinity power and you destroy everything that your opponent has. So there's a couple different ways to win, a couple nice ways to deck build here, some different things going on. Chris, have you ever tried this one, Shards of Infinity?
No, you've told me about it, and I really want to try it, but we just haven't managed to make it happen. I think you even brought it to one of our cons, right? Just in case, and we just didn't get around to playing it.
Yeah, that was in Palm Springs. Tim and I played it, and then Steve and I played it. They both enjoyed it. Tim's going to say it's a little wordier than Star Realms, which is it's relatively accurate. But Tim, how do you feel about Shards?
Well, I actually revisited this one recently because, Chris, there's a pretty great app for it. So if you are interested in playing it with Adam, you guys can just download the app. I assume that I've only played against the AI on there, and it felt pretty much the same way. I mean, I still liked it. It was pretty fun, and I like the building up the shards thing where you can kind of build up to a superpower even infinite damage if you get high enough. But it's kind of like giving you this extra resource that makes you more powerful as you build your deck. So instead of just the normal deck building, engine building, this one's also got a little of a resource that makes you stronger. And that's a clever piece of it. Otherwise, I generally would probably prefer to go back to Star Realms, just because I think as I mentioned last week, the 3 simple icons is just fun and quick to me. But yeah, it's fun.
I just want to see the icon for infinite damage.
It looks like a sideways 8, as you would expect.
Right. That's not so exciting. What is exciting is my number 25 game on the list, which is another one that dropped since last year. This one actually dropped a fair amount, and that is Outlive, designed by Gregory Oliver and published by Le Boy de Joux. And this game, I feel like we've talked about so many times, and almost every time Adam is gritting his teeth in hatred because he hates having to feed his people, and they always die. People always die. That's just the way of the world. But in Outlive, it happens a lot. I think the reason that this post-apocalyptic survival game has dropped a little bit for me is I don't want to give too much credence to Adam's concerns here, but I think that super tight economy and that difficulty of keeping your people alive, I think it takes a little bit of the fun away. And we've had so many games now that we've played where the injection of fun comes a little bit more naturally than it does in Outlive, because that is so grim. Now, having said that, this is still a great game, and the production is great. The art is great. The theme is great. The theme is well integrated, and I've always had a good time playing it. So clearly it is still on my top, 40 list. It's number 25. So it's pretty well down there too. But I think having played more games, expanded my horizons a little bit, this one has dropped a bit. It's no longer number 9, but it is still going strong on the list. And so that doesn't mean I'm not going to be asking to play it anymore, Adam. So I'm sorry to. But my favorite part about this game, I think, is the artwork. In particular, the board itself. There's something I find so exciting about this landscape that you're operating on. Like, one of the places that you stop and do your business is this giant crashed tanker ship. It all looks so post-apocalyptic. I don't know. I think that's great. In this one, I think the artwork captures that wonderfully.
Chris, have you tried this with any of your local groups? Because I know you got a couple of groups that you've been playing some games with. I feel like you should give this one a shot and see how it plays for them.
I feel like it might be a little heavy in rules fiddly for the groups that I play with here. But so I can think of other games that I would probably pull out first that have a higher chance of success, but who knows someday. All
right. Well, my number 25 is Rising Sun, designed by Eric Lang and published by Come On Games. Rising Sun is a game that we've talked about a decent amount in the last year. Played it at a couple of our BGHT cons. We did a review on it just a little under a year ago. This game is really risen for me, as the sun can do. I've had a lot of fun with it. Our last play at SedonaCon felt like the last round got a little bit too long, because I think everybody knew that it was down to 1 or 2 points. But otherwise, every play of it's been fun. I love my favorite part is the combat in this. The fact that you hide this little bidding sheet behind your player board, and you put how many coins you want to bid. And there's so much to that. Not only the surprise, exciting choices of what am I going to put? What do I think my opponent's going to put? But also, if I lose the battle, I get their coins, which is going to help me in the next battle. And at the end of the round, you lose all your coins, and you got to start fresh and find new ways to build up coins to going into that round. Rising Sun's fantastic. It's fun. It's pretty approachable. I've been able to teach this to new gamers. They got right into it, and I have a lot of fun playing this one.
Tim, this game is beautiful on the table. The map is amazing. The artwork is fantastic. The miniatures all add to the theme here. What a great choice for Rising Sun. You poked at the last round at SedonaCon. That was me. I was trying to figure out how this battle is all. That's one of my favorite parts about the game, I think, is Eric Lang doing this combat in sequential order. So what happens in Region 2 really determines what's going to happen in the follow-on regions 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So to me, that's really a fun part of the puzzle. Is like, oh, if I lose region 5, then I'll have some money to go into region 6. And do I want to spend it there in region 6, or have another guy in region 7? Should I concentrate there? That's really where the fun part of this game is to me. Similarly with another one of his games, Ankh. So really enjoy Rising Sun here. I think it's a great pick. Another question I had for you, Tim, area control games. This is basically straight area control with that fun combat mechanism. How many more, if you don't mind doing a sneak peek, are in your top, top 25?
I would say there are probably 2 that you would consider, maybe 3 that you would consider area control games. So
interesting.
Not a whole lot on my list here, and this one's high up there, but a few that I like a little bit more. But, all of these area control games that I like, maybe Rising Sun being the least of them, have some Euro-y kind of resource management mechanisms. Rising Sun does as well, but it feels more like straight area control than 2, at least, of the next 3 that I mentioned.
Okay.
I wish I could get more enthusiastic about this game, but I respect your choice.
Up next for me is my number 25 pick, Trekking the World. This is designed by Charlie Fink, published by Underdog Games. It's another one of these light rules overhead. It's less than 2 on Board Game Geek, but that doesn't mean it's not a fantastic thinky game if you want to put some thought into it. You're a traveler going around from continent to continent trying to collect these different souvenirs. You can build them horizontally across your luggage is what you're trying to fill in, or you can build them vertically across your luggage. And that gives you different points, unlocks different things. There's also a little bit of these travel maps. If you're collecting the last souvenir on a continent, you get a travel map that gives you some extra points. There's these beautiful cards. I don't know if they're like photographs or pamphlets or what they're supposed to be, of these different sites around the world. The artwork on these things rivals that of parks. If you're familiar with parks, a lot of people are, but I think it's just a fantastically beautiful game to look at. My favorite thing about this is on the back of those cards, it gives you a description and some information, a piece of history about that site and what's going on there. I think that's fantastic. I love games that show you the world, teach you a little bit about it, and you can kind of get that sense of exploration and excitement and beauty and joy from a board game. That's Trekking the World.
Hey, Adam, speaking of parks, there is actually a Trekking the National Parks version of this game, isn't there?
There is, that's correct. And Trekking Through History.
Okay. I'd like to try the national parks one just because I love national parks.
Yeah, I haven't tried either of the other 2. I heard they're both fantastic, but I haven't tried either one of them.
No, I think Steve actually has Trekking the National Parks unless he's sold it. So you should ask him to bring it to the next BGHTCon. We can get it played.
Nice. Right. My number 24 is a game that Tim would probably never, ever guess would be on my list. And it's a game that I played for the first time at SedonaCon. Can you guess what it is?
Yeah, man, we played Yokohama.
Yokohama. Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
Yokohama is my number 24 game, and it was designed by Hisashi Hayashi and is published by Tasty Minstrel Games. I'm still surprised that I enjoyed this game as much as I did. And honestly, I can't even quite put my finger on why I enjoyed it as much as I did. Because there's just nothing about it that just jumps out at me as, oh yes, of course, that's why I would like the wonderful production or the great theming or the some really cool mechanism. There's just something about the package, the overall, feels of this game that I just really enjoyed. I don't know if it's going to keep climbing for me or if it's going to drop off into obscurity, but at this moment, I find Yokohama is one of those games that just keeps popping back into my head as having been a fun experience, and I want to try it again and see how it shakes out. In terms of my favorite thing about this game, even though I said that the production was not that exciting, I actually found the production quite charming. I think that the little bits of artwork on this game were actually very pleasant and colorful. And because there's no big mechanism or no big, thematic element that jumps out at me as being particularly exciting, I kind of have to rely on that as my favorite bit. But still, overall, just a really satisfying game experience that I had in the couple games that I've played now, and looking forward to trying it some more.
I love hearing that, Chris. And it's funny because Chris and I are going to jump on and play a game together tonight after we finish recording because Adam can't stick around tonight. And I was actually thinking about saying, I hope we can play Yokohama. I want to get on and play Yokohama. And Chris, I don't know if you remember, but we did play a game of this after Sedona Con as well. We played one more online, and Chris managed to kick my butt in that one as well. So that's 2-0 Chris against me in Yokohama at this point. So I want to turn that around. But anyway, since you enjoyed it, hopefully, maybe we can pull that one back out tonight or sometime in the near future.
I knew you were going to say that. I just knew it.
Cool. Well, my number 24 is another game that I played in person at one of our cons with you guys, but also played quite a bit on Board Game Arena, and which I think Chris is now rejecting invites to. That's Anachrony. Anachrony is designed by David Turksey and published by Mind Clash Games. This is a very heavy worker placement game. What I would like to call a conditional worker placement game, where each of your different worker types may be able to do different types of actions or benefit from them. It's got a time travel theme, which I think is implemented pretty well. It's got a wonderful production, beautiful production. And I think the only reason it's lower for me is that it is like a fairly, this is probably the closest comparison I could make to Darwin's Journey, which we played a couple weeks ago. And it's very similar in that it is almost completely just worker placement. And, obviously there's other things going on, and it's heavy. It's got a lot of mechanisms that you're dealing with, but it's just worker placement and not having really an addition of anything outside of worker placement, like significant. I just think it doesn't get me as excited as the variety of things that you can do with worker placement in other places. But that said, Anachrony is still really fun for me. It's still really exciting. I've played it enough now, with it being on Board Game Arena, that I really want to dig into some of the modules. Adam and I played the Fractures of Time expansion once, which was just fantastic, but just added so much time and weight to it. So I'd like to go back to that one, but there's even several other modular expansions that just add little side mechanisms that I think would be really fun to explore at this point with how much we played it. So love Anachrony, and my favorite part about it is the fact that it changes from being a worker placement on the main board to you've got to build up your city and then start to do the worker placement on your own board with your own unique effects, your own unique abilities. And that's, I think, the one thing that really stands out here from a worker placement perspective is that, building up your own, buildings and your own worker abilities. Because at the end of the game, with some of the factions, you may not get more than one or two, mechs that you can put out on the map by the end, like in the last couple of rounds of the game. So you have to find ways to use your workers in your own city. And I think that's a clever arc to this game that I really enjoy.
This is my number 23. So I'm going to talk about it now, and I'll do my number 24 when I get to number 23.
All right.
This is a game for me that was number 3 on my list last year, and now here it is at 23 this year. It's same thing. It's on Board Game Arena. We played it tons and tons and tons, Tim, and I think I only like this game at 2 players. Yeah. I think at 3 players, it gets way too boxy out. You almost feel like you can't do anything. I had a lot of fun with some of our 2-player games, Tim, because it gets like more of a duel. I can see, I think Tim's going for this. Can I do anything to stop him? Not really. Maybe I can get in this spot first and hurt him a little bit. Or I see he's going for these 3 buildings. He needs a lot of water here. I'm going to take this awesome water building because I need some water too. That'll help me out. So I like the choices at 2. At 3, I just felt like a lot of times I couldn't do anything to help myself get more points, get a little boxed out. There's not much I can do. So Anachrony, I think it's fun at 2, but it's fallen a lot for me. And as a consequence of it being on Board Game Arena. Favorite thing about it is the production. Tim, you have this one real person slotting those workers into the mechs, putting them out there, playing with the cubes, different textures on all the different cubes. Fantastic. The fractures of whatever purple chunks that you're putting in there, going Ghostbuster style and whatever you're doing out there. It's awesome. Just fantastic production. Playing with the toys is great here. In my number 23 pick, Anachrony. That's out of place by 1.
Adam, I'm actually totally with you. I think that this game plays best at 2 people that are not me. And just to correct Tim, I'm not rejecting invitations. I've just instructed everybody not to invite me, which has actually worked pretty well. And I'm being really facetious here. I actually don't hate this game. I just don't. This is sort of like the flip side. It's like the evil dark side negative of Yokohama. I can't tell you why, but this game just doesn't hit for me. I look at it and it seems like there's a lot of things in there I would really like, but I don't know. This game just falls flat for me in a way that I can't quite explain. So I know it's a well-loved game. I know you guys really enjoy it, and I can respect that. It's just not my game.
What is your number 24 game then, Chris? Or number 23 game, Chris?
Number 23 game. Well, I'm glad you asked, because it's a game that I had played last year but never made the list. And it did make the list this year. And I feel like this is one that I hope Adam takes some, happiness from, because I just kind of dissed pretty hard on Anachrony. But it's Smarphone Inc., which was designed by Ivan Lashin and published by Cosmodrome Games. It's inexplicable. A game about producing and selling smartphones that I like this much, it's hard to believe. I enjoyed it the first time we played it. I loved it the second time we played it. I actually went out and bought a copy of it. I played it with my wife. She really liked it, other than the fact that she gets total analysis paralysis and, just was trying to do a spreadsheet for like every move she was doing. Other than that, what an amazing game. So streamlined, so fun. If you can sort of get over the absolutely abysmal theme of the game, there's so much fun to be had here. And actually, Tim, you had suggested before something about Outlive and one of my game groups here. And I had said something about the generally likes a lighter rule set, a more streamlined game. This is actually one that I've been bringing with me every week, hoping that I can get it played, and haven't yet, but I'm hoping I'm going to sometime soon, because I think this is a game that's going to hit with folks in my game crew here really well. So hopefully. My favorite part of this game is something I already mentioned, which is just how streamlined it is. There are big decisions to be made. The rule set is not super light. I mean, it certainly feels like a game that's got some intellectual heft to it. And yet, I played a game of this all the way through. It was a 2-player game, but we made it through in, I don't know, a little more than an hour, a little less than an hour, but right about an hour. I mean, that's crazy for a game that's got some serious decision-making to be done, and that has this level of rules and this level of excitement in terms of the gameplay. So I think that's great, and it makes it a great opportunity to play something serious if you don't have a ton of time. And that's a real sweet spot.
We talked a lot about this game recently on SedonaCon, so I'm not going to say much. I also expect it's going to be showing up again on one of our lists here, so I'll leave that conversation to come up and talk about my number 23, which I think might surprise you guys a little bit. But this is Eclipse: Second Dawn for the Galaxy. It's a wonderful game. I mean, I just like outright, it probably should be higher on my list. This game is a really fun resource management action selection game set in space with great discovery, exploration, engine building. You're building up these ships, creating blueprints. Everything's about it is great, except this. Stay out of my way. Like, you guys mess up my plans. You come in and you start combat and you mess up my plans. You break my engine. This is the type of area control that just, it's so painful when you ruin what I've been working on so long. But beyond that, it's still great. I just have to get over it. Absence makes the heart grow stronger, because we didn't play this in SedonaCon, but we did play it last year at LongCon. I miss it. It's been too long since we've gotten together and played it. Great game. Adam's got to stay on the other side of the table when we're playing this game, because he loves to step on my toes. Or Chris, I don't know. Everyone steps on my toes in this game. You know what the worst part about this? I know I'm talking about my favorite things about this game. The worst part about it is that this game rewards you for not building up fast, like not doing your best early, because people then know that they got to go after you, or you go in the middle, take out that GDCR in the middle and take the best territory. And now everyone else wants to go after you and take it. Ugh, I hate that part about this game, but I love a lot of other things. I think my favorite part about it, I mean, it's got to be everyone's favorite part. It's got to be the fact that you're building up these little blueprints and buying technology and building the different ship blueprints, and then whichever ship you built up the most, that's the one you want to get as many of them out on the board as efficiently as you can. So you got this awesome fleet flying around, and you're throwing these plasma missiles and all kinds of crazy bombs with different dice rolls depending on it's so many cool things going on in this game. Don't listen to my complaints. It's an awesome game. You should play it if you got a group of 3 or 4 players that don't mind a little don't mind a little, having your plans ruined, but it's so fun. And you know what? It plays pretty quick too. I think with our group knows it well enough. We get this one done in like 2 hours. It's like one of those games that people can complain about going long, but once you know this game, we just whip right through it, and it's it's fantastic.
Yeah, more to come on this one for sure in a couple weeks. We'll be hearing about this for me. Tim, what puts this one in front of Rising Sun for you?
I mean, it's probably just me, like this is one of the area control games that I did have on my list. I guess I would call it area control. It's just got so many great mechanisms outside of the area control part, like outside of the combat and the dice rolling and the area control, which are my least favorite parts about it. I love the action selection in this. I love the economy, the tight economy of like every action I take is going to cost me more at the end of the round. So I better figure out a way to have enough money. I love the building up techs, buying those unique techs, and there's only limited ones available in the market. So everyone's not got the same options every time. And, once somebody buys it, it's gone, or maybe gone for a couple of rounds at least. I love, taking those techs and building the blueprints. I love the exploration. It's so fun to take an explore action and flip over that hex and see what's there. Oh, it's a couple planets I get to, it's not, it's, it's some ships, but it's some ancients or whatever, but at least it means I can go and attack them and get some points later on and uncover something. So yeah, there's so many just great fun things about this game that are unique and work really well together.
Well, Tim, thanks to you for pointing out the sale that just happened recently at Game Nerds on this one. I picked it up, so we'll have a copy to play in Portland in the fall if everybody wants to do that.
That's awesome.
Great.
We have it here in the Pacific Northwest now.
Chris, did you order that? You should go and now pre-order because they've got the new faction expansion that you can pre-order from the publisher's website. So
nice.
Yeah.
If you get that in time, you never know. Get to try some new factions.
I'll check it out.
Well, we're on to my number 24 game because I went out of order. Talk about Anachrony. No, my number 24 is like a mini, very teeny tiny Eclipse Second Dawn of the Galaxy. This is Age of Galaxy, a game that I backed on Kickstarter. Didn't think it would be anything good. It was cheap and small, so I thought I'd give it a shot, and it ended up being tremendous, much more than I expected that it would be. This is designed by Jeffrey CCH, publisher is Ice Makes Games. What pops out to me most right off the bat is the multi-use cards. You're dealt a hand of, I think it's 7 cards, and you pick 3 of them off the bat to, or up to 3 to be kind of your civilization, and then the rest you're just going to discard and use for their benefits. So I like that choice. You can kind of hold off and choose which ones to use at different points in the game. The art on these cards is fantastic. The iconography, these guys did take a lesson from Star Realms and made some super clean iconography, super easy to parse and understand. This game's a little bit of everything. There's these little tiny tech tracks. There's these little galaxy things that are flipping over, little planets that you're out there colonizing, building up little buildings on, collecting some resources here and there. You can do science stuff. You can do war stuff. There's kind of like almost like a Dune Imperium auction-y combat mechanism at the end of the 2nd through 5th rounds where you get some points out of there, but it's not overly destructive. So a lot of things going on here in a little teeny tiny package. I absolutely love this game. I don't know why it's so low at 24. I have it rated at 10 on Board Game Geek because it's fantastic. Packs a lot of punch in a quick, fun little game. That's Age of Galaxy, a great game with some odd grammatical decisions in the choice of name.
Indeed.
I just one thing to say about this is I think the only reason this didn't make my list, because I really had fun with my plays. It's just that the production, the card art's great, but this little, like card stock player boards, oh man, it doesn't get me excited to pull it out of the box. And like when I'm thinking about a game night with friends, like this should be a great pick for some of my new friends I've been introducing games to. And I keep thinking of bigger productions. So I said it when we reviewed it, and I said it the last time we played it. I think this just really suffers from not being a normal production, a normal size box. They try to fit it in this little box, and I think it hurts it. But a super fun game. I really got to get this back out. This is one I should probably bring to Mexico, and even though the group may not be excited about it, it's such a great size for travel, and should be easy to get played.
And if you don't have fun, you can leave it in Mexico. All right. My number 22 game is another game that was on the list last year. And last year it was number 17. So a little bit of downward movement, but not a whole lot. And it's Golem by Flaminia Brazzini, Virginio Gili, and Simone Luciani, published by Cranio Creations. I believe a design team that we've already heard about tonight with a game that I find much less charming. Was it Lorenzo Il Magnifico?
Yeah.
This is a game that I think dropped a little bit, mostly because I haven't had the chance to play it again. So it has not been on my mind as much. But when faced with it on the Pub Meeple ranking system, I consistently found myself wanting to play it. There's so much interesting stuff happening in this game, and including the theme, which is really cool, which is regarding the legend of the 16th century Golem of Prague, where you have your rabbis that are controlling golems, which are these anthropomorphic clay statues that go out there, and you animate them, and they go out there and they do stuff for you under the control of your students. But your students aren't that awesome, and so they kind of let them get out of control. And then the golems start causing more trouble than they're worth. And then maybe you destroy them and you get some kind of a bonus for that. There's just so much interesting stuff going on there thematically. That's actually my favorite part of the game, is the theme and how the theme integrates, because it is such a unique theme. It also has this really cool synagogue as a production piece, where you, instead of having a dice tower, you have a marble synagogue that gives you basically what moves you're going to be able to take, what power of moves. So this is a game that I haven't played since the one play that we did for our review. It must have been about a year or so ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that. And I just haven't had that opportunity, but I would love to. I'd like to see this game show up on BGA to give me another chance to play it, because I don't know anybody who owns it, and I haven't sprung for it yet. I don't know, maybe I should, but definitely one that I would love to play again. And if it does, maybe it'll be climbing the list next year.
22 on your list, Chris. I mean, you got to buy it. You must have more than 22 games in your collection. So it seems like this should knock something else off the list, right?
Seems like it, huh?
This is a really fun game, and I'd be happy to go back to it. I've got a few plays of it and enjoy it every time. Not quite as much as Lorenzo Il Magnifico, but I still do like it a lot. All right, my number 22 is, in fact, the rest of my list is games that Chris has already mentioned today. So we're starting to match up a little bit here. My number 22 is Yokohama, which Chris mentioned just recently. On our review was the first time I played it. Kind of a special play because I got to play with Dean from Meepletown, who's the host of a podcast I've been listening to for years. So that was fun. He was great to play with, but I just really loved the game, and we got a chance to play it in person for the first time in SedonaCon, played it quite a bit on BGA. And I think this is just such an excellent, interesting Euro. My favorite part about Yokohama is the little bit of engine building, right? There's just you can pick up these little like extra bonus cards. And I love that makes everybody's game feel a little bit unique, but they're not easy to get to. It's a really interesting economy where you're dropping these cubes and when you have to pick them up, and a lot of really cool little mechanisms here that I think is pretty streamlined. I remember the teach going well when I taught it in SedonaCon. I love Yokohama. I've got this in my collection now. I can't wait to play it some more and hope to play it tonight.
All right. My 22 pick is a game Chris talked about last week. This is Downforce. This is my penultimate pick on the list tonight, but my ultimate racing game. I love this one. We talked about it. There's a train track to nowhere. There's these silly little goofy plastic cars going around the track. The art is just kind of ridiculous, but that adds to the whole funness and joy of the game. I think my favorite part of this one is the opportunistic card play. Well, I have a card that's 6 for the black card. Move ahead 6. How am I going to set that up? Oh, I can get the black card behind these 2 cars, and he can't go anywhere. Now I can use this card that would theoretically move the black card 6, but guess what? He's log jammed around this turn. He ain't going nowhere. And I just listened to our episode, and Chris was talking about how you don't even have to pick the right cars to win. You don't have to buy you don't have to buy any cars to win this game. You just bet on other cars and have those guys win. So some fun antics. My favorite thing is the joy around the table this game makes. Everyone's happy watching their wacky cars do some silly stuff around this track. That is Downforce, my number 22 game of all time ever in history.
Isn't it funny though how some games just create smiles? And Wonderland's War does that. Downforce did that. It creates good vibes around the table. So I think that's really fun and a great choice.
Last week, Chris mentioned on his list, and I said I was buying it on Amazon at the time, and I have had it delivered. It was delivered while I was out of town last week. And this game is really interesting because it comes in a standard 12 by 12 box, except it's only about maybe an inch thick. It's like super thin because all it is this one double layered board and then a little stack of cards and then these 6 little race cars. That's all the components in the box. It's a tiny little box. I can't wait to get this played, though. I'm so excited for the next time I got 4 to 6 people that just want to have a fun, casual game night. So this will definitely be getting some more plays around here.
Hopefully it'll be making it to Portland Con.
Should be no problem doing that.
Nice. All right. Well, wrapping it up for this week with the not penultimate, but ultimate pick for the 21 through 30 edition of Best Games of All Time, never to be deviated from in the future or changed in any way at any point. my number one, by which I mean my number 21 game, is Lost Ruins of Arnak, designed by Min and Elwin and published by Czech Games Edition. This one did drop a little bit, again, a small amount from last year where it was number 14, not because I like the game any less, which I feel like I've been saying a lot tonight, but it's true for a lot of these games. They're still on the list, maybe not quite the same luster after being played for quite a bit, but still up there and still always enjoyable. This is a game that's had a second life for me because it's on BGA, and so I pretty much have a running game of this going. And I've played a few games with you guys, and it's just thematically a blast, combined with some really enjoyable game mechanisms. And I think probably my favorite thing about this game is the adventuring part, where when you put together that right combination of the little compasses, then you jump out on that board. And in particular, if you're able to jump out at those the 6 compass spots at the top of the board that give you 2 idols, and you end up getting this monster that pops out. I mean, that happens in any of these exploration spaces, which I think is super fun. When you flip it, you find out what gigantic, awesome benefit that I get and what gigantic, horrible monster do I have to fight. It's always such a crapshoot, but always so much fun. And 99% of the time, I'm so glad I did it. And but it's like this rush. And you combine that with the exploration track or the research track on the right that has these huge, impactful benefits at every step along the way. There's just so much fun to be had there. Not entirely decided on what's the name of is it Expedition Leaders, Tim?
Yeah, the expansion.
Yep, that one I'm kind of 50-50 on, but I like that it's there. I like that it exists. I think it makes it a heavier game, which isn't necessarily always a good thing, but I like that it adds a little bit of variety. But with or without that, I think Lost Ruins of Arnak is a really fun game, and I'm always happy to play it.
Yeah, I would say that Expedition Leaders is actually a really important expansion, even if you don't want to play with the asymmetric powers, because they are interesting and they do make the game heavier, but there's so much added content, just extra artifacts, relics, locations, monsters, that, I played this a lot on Board Game Arena, and it does start to feel a little stale. But when I play it with that expansion, just the content in there, not the new leaders, it completely feels different.
Okay.
I don't know. It shouldn't feel that different, but it's just enough different effects that come in that really add a lot of fun to it. Another expansion just got announced for this as well, which adds a solo or 2-player story mode, kind of like a 5-game campaign. And I actually got a chance to play a digital version of this campaign, or something that was very similar. They might have changed it a little bit, and it's a blast. It's so much fun. Kind of changes the starting conditions and a little bit of the story
that
you're going through every game. So I really recommend that if you want to play solo or like a co-op 2-player. But it is also going to add more cards and stuff. So another expansion is a no-brainer for me. My wife plays this with me a lot. She's really angry that I win most of the time, but she still seems to be going back to it and trying. So luckily I get a lot of plays of this around my house.
Fun.
Nice.
All right. Well, my number 21 is a game, again, that Chris did mention recently, and that was Outlive. And this is published by Le Boy de Jeu. Great game that Chris and I have played a lot together. He's played most of the games of it I've ever played. And I just really like this little engine builder. It is tight. It's a tight economy, but it's an interesting economy. Moving around this rondel, trying to collect resources before other people get there. A little fiddly in the setup and in between rounds. But I think it pays off in the fact that there is this limited economy of each type of resource each round. And my favorite part about it is the way the engine building's done here. There's 2 areas where you can engine build. One is finding weapons and then fixing them, repairing them. And each of these weapons that you repair cost some resources, but they give you an ongoing effect. And then if you can get 2 matching, they'll have little icons between them, 2 matching weapons. They tend to complement each other. So like they might both give you benefits for going to one space. That's really exciting. But then they also give you a little end game bonus. So that's my favorite part of the engine building. There's also engine building in building up rooms in your shelter, which can be fun and interesting as well. And everybody starts the game with a little bit of a setup choice where you have 6 to choose from, and you keep 4 of the starting ones, and then you have to build them over the course of the game. So everyone's game is a little bit different. I really love Outlive. I want to find a retail copy of this. I used to have the Kickstarter version. I gave it to Chris, kind of regret it, but also I felt like that box was just too big for what you got out of it. I didn't think the upgraded components added enough to me. I kind of want just a plain old retail copy of this. One of the reasons I like this and why I want this game too is because I've got a group of friends that I've recently introduced games to, right? They weren't gamers before. But what I'm finding really clearly is that they like thematic games. Like they don't like, Yokohama is not going to be a hit for them. Lorenzo Il Magnifico is not going to be a hit for them. But games that have some story, that have some excitement, that have some adventure, like I'm planning to introduce Revive to them on game night this week because I think that's going to be a huge hit for them. So I think Outlive is one of those games that will just hit well because it's thematic. It's got an interesting, adventurous theme to it with fun, Euro type of mechanisms in it.
Can all your workers die in this game? Like if you don't have any water, can you just not have any workers and be dead?
Well, remember, your workers don't die. It's the people in your shelter are basically endgame points, and you need those to fill in the shelter rooms so that you can get the benefits of those rooms. But you don't literally need those to play the game. The workers you're using to move around the map are separate. There are 4 different workers of different number types. Those cannot die. So you can't really be knocked out of this game at all. You can just do very poorly scoring if you don't take care of your people.
I'm aware of that. All right, my number 21 pick. Both of you gentlemen have talked about this already. This is Pan Am, Prospero Hall game that we've talked about, and it's just fantastic, light, easy rules overhead, a little bit of stock manipulation in there. I think for the first time we played last time, I sold some stock back so I could take an action. I didn't think that was ever going to happen, but it came up in a situation where I thought it might be a little advantageous, or maybe I was covering for a mistake I made in the previous. I can't remember, but ended up working out so that I could snag a bigger airplane or a better spot or a landing card or something. There's all these different little spots you can go to that'll help you in these little edge case kind of ways and might edge out an opponent. It's so fun to get bought out by Pan Am, and you can just buy all the stock in the world when it comes down to the stock buying time. What a fun game. You guys already said a lot about it. This one has risen for me because it gets more and more enjoyable, more approachable. That's Pan Am. For everything about it, I don't know. Maybe the theme. I think it is the nostalgic theme. This era of air travel is so romanticized and looked back upon. It's just gorgeous. The planes that they had. I have a few pieces of artwork with Pan Am aircraft and them flying across the Pacific or to the Pacific Southwest. Just these beautiful locations they used to fly to. So I think I have that romanticized nostalgia for Pan Am and this game. My number 21, capping off the list here between our games for 30 to 21 best board games of all time.
Such a good choice to cap us off with tonight.
All right, great. Well, that will wrap up this week's episode. We're excited to come back next week and talk through our numbers 11 through 20. We already know what they are. None of you do. In fact, I don't know what your guys are either. So, we've got something you're going to be surprised by, maybe. I don't know. I think 11 through 20 might be my favorite part of this list, to be honest, because probably get the most interesting surprises that I really love in this list. So we'll be back next week. And until next week, take care, everybody.
Good night, all.
Bye-bye.